to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a place where stories move slowly and softly, guiding you toward deep and peaceful rest. And tonight, you'll wander to a quiet forest cottage that gently awakens from its long slumber. Take a moment to settle in. Let your body find a comfortable position, whether you are lying on your back, on your side, or curled up beneath a cozy blanket. Feel the surface beneath you supporting your weight, steady and dependable. There is nothing you need to do right now. No tasks, no decisions, just listening and breathing. Draw in a long, gentle breath through your nose, feeling your chest and belly rise. Hold it for a moment at the top, then let it fall away in a slow exhale as if you are sighing out the events of the day. Again, a deep, soothing breath in, a slow, quiet breath out. With each exhale, allow your shoulders to drop a little more, your jaw to loosen, your hands to soften where they rest. Imagine the world around you growing quieter, as if curtains of soft, velvety dusk are being drawn. The sounds of the day recede into the distance. The air grows cooler, calmer, in the gentle hush that remains. Feel a sense of spaciousness opening around you, like a wide, starlit sky inside your mind. Somewhere within this vast and peaceful quiet, a forest is waiting. Its trees stand tall and patient, their leaves whispering in a language older than words. Hidden among them, a small cottage rests, still and dreaming. As you breathe slowly and deeply, you begin to drift toward that tranquil place, carried on the rhythm of your breath, carried on the softness of this moment. Let your eyes grow heavy and imagine that with every exhale, you move a little closer to that secret clearing, to that waiting cottage, to a night that asks nothing of you but to rest. And so, the story begins. In the heart of an old forest, where the path of human footsteps had long since faded into moss and memory, there stood a small stone cottage. Its walls were dressed in a gentle green of lichen and ivy, and its roof was soft with moss, as if the earth itself had reached up to cradle it. Around the cottage, great trees arched their branches overhead, weaving a canopy that turned the sky into a mosaic of deep blue and silver starlight. For a very long time, the cottage had slept. Its windows were dark and quiet, their glass clouded with dust and the delicate patterns of spider webs. The door of weathered oak rested closed against its hinges, leaning slightly, as though drowsy from years of stillness. Inside, the air was cool and still, and even the smallest motes of dust seemed to drift slowly, calmly, unhurried by time. Night lay gently over the forest. The moon hung between the branches, full and pale, its light gathering in silver pools on the forest floor. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called once, then again, the soft sound echoing faintly between the trunks. The leaves answered with a whispering sigh, a rustle like breath in sleep. Within the cottage, on a simple bed near the stone hearth, a traveler rested, wrapped in a patchwork quilt that carried the faint scent of lavender and pine. The traveler lay still, breathing in a slow and peaceful rhythm. They had arrived at the cottage only as the light was fading, guided by a narrow path that had appeared between the trees just when it was needed. The cottage had welcomed them in silence, with the promise of shelter and rest, and now they slept as deeply as the building itself. The forest watched over them. All through the night, branches swayed in slow arcs overhead, tracing patterns in the moonlight. The soft chorus of crickets rose and fell like the tide, soothing and constant. A fox passed by the clearing, paused soundless on the leaf-strewn ground, pausing just long enough to glance at the cottage with bright, curious eyes, then moving on, satisfied that all was well. Inside, the cottage dreamed. It dreamed of days when a fire had glowed in the hearth, its warmth reaching into every corner. It dreamed of the gentle clatter of cups on a wooden table, of the smell of bread warming and herbs hanging to dry. It dreamed of laughter that had once filled its rooms, the soft murmur of voices, the creak of a rocking chair near the window. It held these memories as carefully as the traveler held their breath, resting in a deep, unbroken stillness. Yet beneath the stillness, something very quiet was beginning to stir. It began with the smallest change, a shift so gentle it might have been imagined. The first pale hint of dawn touched the horizon far beyond the forest, a subtle lightening of the sky behind the trees. The stars, one by one, began to dim, their silver shine softening into a muted glow before fading from sight. Above the cottage, the darkness grew thinner, as though a veil of shadow was being gently lifted. The cottage felt at first as a tiny warmth in the air, a whisper of new light pressing against the outer stones. The moss on its roof, still beaded with dew, seemed to drink in this nascent glow, holding it close like a secret. The ivy along the walls stirred, its leaves shivering with the faintest breeze, as if pressing their faces toward the arrival of morning. Inside, the traveler shifted slightly beneath the quilt. Their breath remained slow and even, but a deeper ease settled over their sleep, like a blanket laid over another blanket. Beyond the small window, birds were beginning to wake. Their voices, at first tentative and scattered, grew gradually into a gentle chorus, each song a soft note in the unfolding melody of dawn. In a quiet corner of the cottage, resting on a shelf coated with a thin layer of dust, a small clay teapot sat beside a row of simple cups. A faint glimmer of light brushed its curved surface, outlining its shape. The teapot seemed to remember warm mornings and fragrant steam rising into sunlit air. It remembered the careful hands that once lifted it, the grateful sighs of those who drank from it. Though it did not move, something within it unfolded like a memory returning. The hearth, cold and dark, waited patiently. Ashes lay in a gentle drift, the last remnants of a fire long past. The stones around it carried the memory of warmth, and as the dawning light crept into the cottage, through the dim windows, it pooled near the hearth, as if preparing the space for glow and comfort once more. Outside, the forest breathed. Mist rose from the ground, pale and soft, weaving between the roots and reaching toward the lower branches. It swirled around the cottage, curling gently against the stones, then rising to drift away, as if it were waking the building with a quiet, tender touch. Each tree stood tall, still half in shadow, half in the tender gray light that comes just before the sun lifts above the horizon. A small brook not far from the cottage murmured over stones worn smooth by time. During the night, its voice had been little more than a hush under the sounds of nocturnal life. Now, with the forest so still and attentive, the brook's song grew clearer, a steady, soothing murmur that wrapped around the clearing like a lullaby in reverse, gentle enough that even as the world moved toward waking, the traveler sank deeper into rest. The cottage listened. It listened to the birds, to the brook, to the sigh of the breeze passing through the leaves. It listened to the deep, steady breaths of the sleeper within. It listened to the quiet thrum of life threading through the forest, the pulse of roots beneath the soil, the rustling whispers of creatures hidden in leaf and hollow. Each sound was soft, patient, and kind, and together they braided into a sense of aliveness that reached into the very stones of the little house. Slowly, the cottage began to awaken. A beam of early light found its way through a crack in the shutters and slipped into the room. It traced a graceful line across the floor, illuminating swirling dust motes that danced lazily in the air. It climbed up the side of a wooden chair, then crept across the simple table where a woven basket sat empty, waiting. As the light touched each surface, it seemed to coax color back into the world, drawing out the warm brown of the wood, the soft hues of the quilt, the faint green threads embroidered along the curtains. The air inside shifted as if taking its first deep breath in quite some time. It grew a little warmer, a little brighter, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and pine that seeped in from the forest outside. The floorboards gave the softest sigh, settling back into place after a long night of stillness. It was as though the entire cottage was stretching after a long, peaceful sleep. Very slowly, very gently, a small, woven rug near the bed, faded from years of use, glowed faintly in the growing light. Its once vivid colors were now soft and subdued, like memories of wild flowers at the edge of a meadow. The traveler's fingers loosened where they had curled slightly against the quilt, and their face smoothed into even deeper calm, as if the gentle awakening of the cottage was easing them into an even more restful dream. On the windowsill, a clay pot held a plant that had somehow survived the cottage's long quiet. Its leaves were small but resilient, a soft green unfurling toward the light. During the night they had drooped slightly, heavy with dew. Now, as the first true rays of morning slipped through the glass, the leaves turned toward them, opening wide, welcoming the new day with silent gratitude. In the space above the hearth, a simple wooden shelf held a row of jars, their contents a muted rainbow of dried herbs. Time had faded their labels, but the faint scents of thyme and chamomile and mint lingered still, woven into the very air. As the cottage woke, it seemed to remember the hands that had carefully gathered each sprig, hanging them upside down to dry, then tucking them into jars for safekeeping. Those moments of care and intention settled over the room like an invisible warmth. Beyond the clearing, the sun's edge finally touched the tops of the highest trees. Gold continued to spread through the forest, filtering down through the canopy to paint dappled patterns on the ground. Each leaf seemed to catch a spark of light, passing it softly to the next, until the entire grove shimmered with a quiet, living glow. Dewdrops clung to the grass and the moss around the cottage, sparkling like tiny sleeping stars fallen to earth. A deer stepped softly into the clearing, ears flicking as it listened. Its breath formed a faint mist in the cool morning air. It regarded the cottage for a moment, head tilted slightly as if recognizing a familiar presence returning. There was no fear, only a calm acknowledgement. After a time, it lowered its head to nibble at the tender grass near the brook, its movements unhurried and peaceful. Inside, the traveler remained in deep and easy sleep. Their dreams were gentle, filled perhaps with the sound of the brook and the soft rustle of leaves. The cottage seemed to enfold them in its renewed awareness, becoming once more the sheltering presence it was meant to be. The walls did not press in. They relaxed outward, holding a pocket of quiet amid the waking forest. The awakening continued, not with sudden bursts or sharp changes, but with a steady, patient unfolding. Light reached deeper into the room, brushing the pages of a book that lay on the bedside table. The cover was plain, its corners slightly worn. It had been left open to a page where wildflowers were pressed between parchment, their shapes preserved in delicate outlines. The light warmed the paper, and the faint scent of dried petals seemed to rise, subtle and sweet. The chimney, which had stood cold and silent through many seasons, now felt warmer stone by stone as the sun climbed higher and the day's gentle heat seeped into the cottage. A small breeze found its way through the narrow gap around the door, bringing with it the forest's chorus, birdsong, the murmur of the brook, the gentle creak of branches in the wind. These sounds floated through the room, settling like a soft blanket over the sleeper. The forest's awakening was never hurried. It moved in cycles, in breaths, in the quiet turning of light and shadow. The cottage, too, understood this rhythm. It did not rush the day. It simply opened itself to the slow flood of morning, allowing the warmth and brightness to fill its spaces, to chase away the last traces of night from the corners where shadows lingered. On a hook beside the door hung a simple cloak, its fabric rough but sturdy. Once, it had been wrapped around shoulders that came home at dusk, damp from rain or scented with herbs gathered from the forest's edge. Now, as the cottage awakened, the cloak stirred gently in the breeze that slipped through the cracks, a small movement that suggested readiness, a quiet invitation to future journeys and homecomings. But for now, there was only stillness and rest. The traveler did not yet wake. Their breathing remained soft and steady, the rise and fall of their chest keeping time with the gentle sway of the trees outside. The quilt held them in a cocoon of warmth, its many pieces of fabric like fragments of older stories sewn together, each square a whisper of days gone by. The cottage held this moment tenderly, as if placing both traveler and itself in the gentle cradle of the morning. The brook continued its murmuring, the sound threading through the air, mingling with the layered songs of the birds. Some called from the highest branches, their notes bright and clear. Others chirped from the underbrush, softer and more secretive. Together they wove a tapestry of sound that filled the forest without disturbing its peace. It was a song meant for listening without effort, like music that one might drift off to, even as the day grew brighter. Within the cottage, the dust motes drifted lazily in the light, turning slowly, gracefully, as if they too were awakening from a long slumber. The table, the chairs, the shelves, the hearth, all seemed to settle into themselves, remembering their purposes. The cottage had not been abandoned. It had only been resting, waiting for the right moment to open its eyes again. The traveler shifted once more, their hand emerging from beneath the quilt to rest on the pillow. Their fingers relaxed, the last remnants of tension melted by the gentle atmosphere that wrapped them. A faint smile touched their lips, the kind that appears when sleep is deep and dreams are kind. The cottage watched over them, every stone and beam and board quietly devoted to their rest. Time in the forest did not move in sharp steps. It flowed like the brook, like the passing of clouds overhead. The early light softened as it filled the cottage, smoothing every edge into a comfortable blur. Shadows grew less distinct, merging with the gentle brightness until there was only a warm, hazy glow. The air held a delicate balance of cool freshness and growing warmth, perfect for lingering in sleep. The forest around the cottage went about its day. Squirrels darted along branches, pausing to peer curiously at the clearing before continuing on their way. A pair of birds dipped down to the edge of the brook to drink, sending ripples across its surface that shimmered in the slanting light. Somewhere nearby, a hare slipped between bushes, its presence marked only by the faintest sound of leaves brushing against fur. Through it all, the cottage stood steady and tranquil, the center of a slow and quiet awakening. As the sun climbed higher, the light that filtered into the room grew warmer, painting the walls in gentle gold. Yet the traveler's sleep remained undisturbed, protected by layers of fatigue. lifting and easing, of thoughts growing softer and more distant. The forest's awakening did not demand their attention. It simply existed around them, a peaceful world turning at its own, unhurried pace. Eventually, the cottage's awakening reached a kind of quiet fullness. The light had touched every corner, and the warmth had seeped into every stone and wooden beam. The air was fragrant, with the mingling scents of forest and old herb jars, of moss and sun-warmed dust. The traveler rested at the heart of this gentle cocoon of life, and all seemed complete and whole. In this moment, it was as if the cottage and the forest and the traveler shared a single slow breath. In and out, light and shadow, silence and bird song. The cottage, newly awake, did not rush toward activity. It simply stood, patient and still, content in its renewed awareness, in the knowledge that it had once again become a safe and welcoming place. The forest, like a great, watchful guardian, encircled it with roots and branches and flowing water, holding the space steady. There would be time later for opening doors, for stepping outside, for feeling sunlight fully on skin and hearing the crunch of leaves underfoot. There would be time for warming the hearth, for coaxing a new fire into being, for steeping herbs into soothing tea. There would be time for wandering along the brook, for tracing paths between ferns and stones. But that time was not now. Now was a time for lingering in the in-between, where sleep and waking touched gently, like fingertips meeting in passing. In this quiet, in this softness, the traveler remained wrapped in peace, and the cottage watched over them with a patience that had learned to measure itself. Not in minutes or hours, but in seasons and dawns, and the slow return of light after every night. As the story of this morning rested in its own calm, the forest seemed to hum with a subtle, comforting rhythm, a rhythm like the beating of a heart, like the rise and fall of breath. And out beyond the cottage, beyond the forest, beyond the edge of this quiet world, another listener lay at rest, breathing in time with the story, sinking slowly into its gentle depths. As the cottage stands in its clearing, fully awake yet perfectly calm, allow the peaceful scene to drift closer to your own resting body. Imagine that same warm light, the soft glow that fills the room, spreading gently around you. The walls of your own space grow quieter, gentler. The air around you grows softer and more supportive. Your breath is slow and easy now. In and out, in and out, as steady as the brook that flows near the cottage, as unwavering as the patient trees that stand around it. With each breath, feel any last remnants of tension loosening even further. The muscles in your face relax, your forehead smoothing, your jaw releasing. Your shoulders sink a little deeper into your pillow. Your arms feel heavy and safe. Your legs and feet rest without effort, held by the bed beneath you. The cottage has awakened, but you are allowed to rest. The forest is alive and attentive, yet you are invited to drift further into stillness. Everything that needs to continue will continue on its own. The world beyond this moment can wait. The only thing asked of you now is gentle surrender to the quiet inside you. Feel as though your thoughts are like the dust motes drifting in the cottage's morning light. They appear for a moment, then melt back into the glow, no longer sharp or insistent. The story of the cottage, of the forest, of the slow and tender awakening settles in your mind like a soft, folded blanket, comforting and warm. If sleep approaches, let it come. If drowsiness gathers at the edges of your awareness, let it move inward, filling you as steadily and softly as the light filled the cottage. There is no need to hold on to anything, no need to follow the story any further. It has carried you to the threshold of rest, and now it can gently fade into the background, like bird song becoming distant, like mist dissolving in sunlight. The traveler in the forest cottage sleeps peacefully still, wrapped in their patchwork quilt, cradled by old stone walls and careful beams of wood. The cottage stands fully awake, keeping watch. The forest breathes, calm and sure, its roots deep, its branches reaching up to the sky. And you rest, safe within your own quiet clearing, your own small cottage of blankets and pillows, your breath a tender rhythm in the hush of the night. Allow your eyelids to grow heavier if they are not already closed. Feel the gentle weight of them, the pleasant dimness behind them. Your mind can grow quieter now, thoughts slowing into a soft drift, like fallen leaves settling on still water. The forest is at peace. The cottage is awake and watching. You are allowed to let go. Let your awareness float, loose and light, as the story dissolves into calm. If a thought arises, let it pass by like a cloud across a pale morning sky, leaving behind only clear, open space. Sink into that space. Let it cradle you. Sleep may come on soft feet, like a deer stepping into a sunlit clearing, gentle and unassuming. When it arrives, welcome it and let it stay. There is nothing you must do to meet it. You are already ready. The cottage stands. The forest listens. Your breath flows in and out, slow and steady like a lullaby, written just for you. Good night, dear traveler. Rest deeply. Sleep well.